Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. I am your co-host, Seth Boyd,
I am Megan Tierney.
and we're back with another absolute titan of cinema. We've used that phrase a few times because it applies to who we're talking about, and we're talking about Akira Kurosawa, one of the, without a doubt, most influential filmmakers of all time. And it was a long time coming. We've talked about several Japanese movies already. It's been a while since we've maybe we've kind of missed maybe the biggest one. um,
Yeah, the
and
biggest director,
Yeah, and this
possibly.
man had, I think over 30 movies. I'm not looking that
Mhm.
up, so don't quote me, but decades spanning career from the 40s into the 90s. Very long career. Many masterpieces that are studied in film school that are beloved. So it's kind of hard to figure out where do you start with one. Um, so we just had to start with the one that's about to be remade, um, which is a
Ah,
long history of not just American Hollywood, but everybody doing Kurosawa movies. And we're doing High and Low because Spike Lee has announced he's about to do a remake of
mm,
this with Denzel Washington.
that's right.
Before we get too much into this specific movie, Megan, you had probably watched clips in school, right, of some Kurosawa movies. So did you have, and I think this is your first time watching one of his films, though, is that right?
So you were right, and I thought that was correct for me too. But I was excited to be reminded that I had they and I can't remember literally if this may have been like they put this one in middle school for us, which that would be kind of crazy. But we watched Rashomon.
Okay,
I
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely seen Rashomon, and it was specifically for like um it wasn't like here kids watch Rashomon. It was a very filmic, like
Okay,
we're gonna take some film notes about this movie. So I remember it for that. I don't remember like much about that
sure.
the plot of it, but I remember it visually because I saw a clip of it like in we'll probably link below some really great
Yeah.
like video essays that have been talked about Kurosawa, which were really helpful for me. And sure enough, Rashomon was in it, and I was like, "Oh, that's like distinctly." It just like jogged my memory. So, I think that's like kind of a big takeaway that I have of it is that Kurosawa is pretty distinctive,
Yeah.
very distinctive in the look and feel of it. So, but certainly the first time for High and Low, and really sitting with it as an adult, and kind of with like
Yeah.
it's very fun with this with a filmic eye. I think that's going to be kind of a big part of me talking about it is how truly influential it kind of seems to me.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I ran briefly a film school for elementary's kids,
Oh,
and I did show them Kurosawa movies, show them Stray Dog, and they liked it, which was like one of the
yeah.
very. It's kind of an earlier version of this, in that it is a for Kurosawa contemporary set in the 40s crime thriller,
Uh-huh.
but it's kind of really a template for every police procedural. And so we're going to talk about some of these movies real quick, kind of tangentially, like Rashomon, beyond just being a very huge movie. Um, that movie's known for it shows the same crime from five different people's perspectives. So
Uh-huh.
Rashomon effect is still a legal term used globally, including America, to this day.
Oh, that jogs my memory too. Yes, there was something about the title, like
Yeah,
as well.
and I don't recall which director we last talked about this. This comes up occasionally. Um, Post World War II is a fascinating time for world cinema because several countries um, focused on basically reintroducing themselves as a global country, a global power, or a global center of the arts through film. And Japan is one of them. And they really,
Mhm.
after World War II, the devastation, really funded their film program. Germany did the same thing after World War One. They didn't have as much to do after World War II. Italy did the same thing
Mhm.
after World War II. It's something that happens pretty often. And Rashomon was the first film to win. I think the Cannes Film Festival, maybe it was Venice, but to like it was the first Japanese export to be really recognized
Yeah.
internationally post World War II. And Japan had had a long film history well before this. Many of the film directors into the 60s started in the silent era. So he's a hugely influential filmmaker and literally changed the shape of Japan's culture and how we see it internationally
Hmm.
and film in general. Among the most obvious influences are George Lucas really based and Spielberg, largely based on other films around him, particularly Hidden Fortress. Star
Mm,
Wars is basically a remake of Hidden Fortress, and Lucas was very open about that. The plot structure is based off that.
wow.
Um, the Darth Vader helmet is based off the samurai helmets that Toshiro Mifune is wearing. It's one of his lead actors in these movies. So he did a
Yeah.
lot of these feudal Japan samurai movies, for lack of a better term. But we're actually talking about one of his ones he did in contemporary Japan that is really fascinating. And it stars many of his lead actors, or his
Hmm.
recurrent actors, including Toshiro Mifune, who was often the leading man in 17 movies, including Rashomon. He's the bandit, and that he
Mm,
is um, a wealthy man who gets caught up in a kidnapping gone wrong.
yeah.
And before I kind of blank out the plot details here, Megan, did you know anything about this movie? Like, did you? I don't even know like what a synopsis says of this, if it really kind of gives all the spoilers, or like what did you kind of know before going into this?
I knew nothing. I didn't
Okay,
read the description, I don't think even. So I was nice and blank
great.
going in. Hmm.
I'm glad to hear that because it's a very interesting, more
Yeah.
intricate plot. It's not just a kidnapping goes wrong, but with what we've talked about so far, how do you feel about this movie being remade? And folks, we will dive into the meat of this. I promise, just a little bit more preamble.
I was thinking about that when we talked about it. I thought I'm actually I well, just in terms of his films of what you
Yeah.
mentioned, I think that I'm glad that like I should say a film like this is
Hmm.
getting remade.
Yeah.
Maybe is what I'm thinking because like I'm I just there's so many or there could be so many ginormous budget samurai
Right.
movies or
Right.
something like that. And that this is kind of um I for me, I think a lot of the simplicity in this shines a
Hmm.
lot. So that's kind of the interesting part that I sure hope comes through in the remake. And we can only say I like you said Spike
It's
Jones.
Spike. No, Spike Lee. Sorry.
Sorry, Spike Lee. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the better one. Um.
Exactly. And I like them both. I
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Spike Lee a lot, and so like that immediately makes it more interesting to me,
Yeah.
or like is a bit of an intrigue there. So, um, because of how stylized it was, I'm just yeah, you're just curious how it's
Right.
gonna come out.
And I think it is. We're well past the point of, unfortunately, if Kurosawa being precious, you shouldn't remake it. There's a whole Wikipedia page of remakes of Kurosawa movies from
Yeah.
everywhere, both Bollywood remakes of
Oh
Kurosawa
wow.
movies,
Yeah.
and among the most famous are the Seven Samurai. Again, considered one of the greatest
Hmm.
movies ever made, was remade as The Magnificent Seven. I think like
Yes.
8 years ago, there was another American version of The Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington, actually, and Chris Pratt and all that. So
Wow.
his movies are remade constantly. Yojimbo became an unauthorized remake of Fistful of Dollars, which was the first, or considered the first spaghetti western with Clint Eastwood. So
Uh-huh.
hugely influential movies. But I
Wow.
think you really hit on something about like this is a simple movie in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Like, it's very stylized, but this shouldn't be a big budget movie other than like
Yeah.
stars, and some cranes and helicopters. There should not be CGI in this. There should not be a big costume budget for this. So,
Hmm.
and I saw that because when I first heard about this, I was excited.
Right.
Partially because I love Spike Lee and Denzel Washington working together again. They've made many movies, but it's been a while.
Hmm.
So that's exciting. I think Denzel would be great in the lead in this. And despite this being, none of the remakes are better, this sounds a lot better than other movies that could be remade or remade again.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of optimistic about it. It should be
Good.
noted, Spike Lee has not a great track record of not just bad remakes, but a bad Asian remake, which is being broad, but he did
Mm.
in 2013 a version of Old Boy, the Park Chan-wook
Ah,
movie from the 90s that really, well before Parasite, kind of put Korean films, particularly Korean
mm,
thrillers, on the map. And that is a more complicated, stranger movie. Um, that I understand there was a lot of plot changes and miss opportunities with. So
right.
that was a poorly received movie, and I think it was a poorly conceived movie. But this, I think, is
Mm.
more grounded in a way that I'm holding out hope. We'll see. I could eat these words. It's happened before,
Yeah.
but again, a great opportunity to talk about Akira Kurosawa. So,
Yeah.
let's dig into it. The film follows Toshiro Mifune again as a pretty high up person at a women's shoes company, which I had
Yeah.
forgotten that that was his job. And
You forgot him
um,
ripping up the shoes
yes,
and
okay, let's actually
being
talk about that.
very
The
particular.
it begins with high stakes of a completely different thing because again, this movie involves a kidnapping, but it begins with an attempted Kurosawa takeover. You know, he has other
Yeah.
board members trying to talk him into joining him to out oust the owner of the company. And we
Hmm.
find out as soon as they leave, he's not going to join their plan because their plan sucks and they want to make shitty shoes. And he's actually going to get the votes and the money himself. He's already planning to just
Yeah.
take over the company without them. Um, as a woman who wears shoes, what did you think of their discussion about what a woman wants in a shoe and what a shoe should be? Also, as someone consuming products in this era, how did you feel
Sure.
about the
I should
disposal versus quality? Yeah,
I laugh because I am not like a California girl here, not an LA girl. Also,
right.
I can't even remember the last time I wore heels. So I'm
Sure.
that kind of
We should
lady, if
clarify
you
when we say
will.
women's shoes, we mean like designer fashion,
These were
heels,
like
exactly.
these are gorgeous looking also, by the way,
Sure.
pumps. That he I just couldn't get the image of him ripping them up out of my head. That was nuts. But I've learned a little bit. I really like fashion, especially in like
Hmm.
film too. I find it like a fascinating kind of subject and
Yeah.
history and I, I it it's an interesting kind of angle because we kind of get him also just as this I think there's a lot of very like overt tones of maybe I should say like traditional
Yes.
masculinity
Yeah.
going on. And so it may soften things just a little bit because I mean right away we kind of see that he's this our protagonist here is maybe not the best uh person
Right.
moral wise the best man.
He definitely has that
So
a
I
rigid masculinity for sure.
and he has his dealings with his very like traditional wife in beautiful
Hmm.
garb is pretty like plainly harsh kind of in the
Yes.
beginning. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting that it's the women's shoe company.
Yeah.
I think it I in talking about it maybe it serves to soften things like a little bit like I say, but um it,
That's a good point.
it's I wonder. I kind of wonder.
I think it is because it's, no one, and this would have been a clear opportunity for a movie that this, I think this movie came out 61 for, frankly, gay jokes. And there's none of that in
Right.
here. No one is expressed as being homosexual, um,
Mm,
which, we always could use representation, of course. But it's interesting it doesn't go that route. These are particularly Toshiro Mifune, who at this point again has been like an award-winning actor as the strong action samurai. He plays Macbeth as a samurai. He does
yeah.
incredible action things, and here he is very passionate about women deserve a quality, fashionable shoe.
Oh
know,
yeah.
is not what you expect. And I think
Right.
it's I was kind of touched about the idea of somebody this high up. It's who cares about a quality product in this
Yeah.
day and age when we're dealing with Sheen and stuff.
It's true.
But obviously there is higher quality products out there, but still. So we have this drama is unfolding of, this stressful, hostile situation at work where everyone agrees that change has to happen. The old guard, the old man needs to go out. We need to do something about it. And his plan is revealed kind of after it's completed in motion. He has an assistant with him, he has his wife, and he has the staff. He has like I think it's kind of not a work assistant, but kind of a catch-all guy who's like the driver and gardener and other thing.
Yes.
Um, and throughout this, we have their two boys playing his staff and his own kid.
Hmm.
And after Mifune makes the call to secure the funds, he gets a call that assumes it's a prank saying, I've kidnapped your son. Then starts to me, this isn't a prank. Then his kid runs in there.
Right.
And the big twist is the kidnapper kidnapped the wrong kid. They kidnapped his chauffeur's kid.
Hmm.
Um, so we're faced with a moral dilemma here of does he still pay? Because he's initially thinking, of course not. It's not my kid. Which
Hmm.
again, to your point, Megan, we feel like, oh, this guy's not great pretty quickly.
And very immediately for the kid was uh gathering up the money or like trying
Yeah.
concocting how he could get the money when he thought it was his real child.
Right, right.
So that was interesting too. And it was
And the actual father's in the room this whole time
right. His
watching.
staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
had to, but it was watching his change of, oh, it's not my kid.
Right.
Why should I pay?
Pretty
Um,
like real or pretty not I mean understandable reaction to be honest is how
yeah.
I thought about it too. Like everybody's reaction was quite like in their correct lane and
Hmm.
it was interesting stuff that was brought up as it unfolded as like the the police came and everything.
Yeah.
The investigators I should say came.
So this is the kind of main plot. I think we'll kind of stop there. We'll kind of talk about the ending as it comes out. But
Mm.
um, at this point in the movie, Megan, like, what were you thinking? Were you hooked? Where did you think it was going to go? And just kind of talk to me about in general your experience watching this, if you don't mind.
Sure. So like I think it's important for me to say that it's kind of like an hour or so the next hour or so I would say is we get basically in the house in his
Yeah.
house going over the investigation and getting calls back and forth from the kidnapper and just kind of concocting deals and even with curtains drawn like due
Yeah.
to the kidnapper can reveals that he can see him in a call so the investigators close the curtains kind of immediately anyway but in other words it reminded me very much of a classic kind of Hollywoodism maybe it's not just maybe a cinema thing but keeping everybody in one room to keep the budget nice and tight
Right.
and
Well,
small.
like rope or
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Oh, very like 40s-esque,
Hmm.
I would say.
Yeah.
Not sound stagey necessarily, but just in a confined location, which
Right.
really reminded me of like 40s cinema stuff.
Yeah.
But then in Expanse, we get a ton of different air shots of them actually like going through the the investigation in the like outside world. So literally
Hmm.
right after that, it kind of expands into that. I really thought it was gonna be kind of The Room, like kind of it
Yeah.
reminded me of a 40s-esque even detective movie like that. So to see it expand was unexpected for me, very much unexpected for me, but a nice contrast, I would say.
I gotta say, on a rewatch too, it does heighten how claustrophobic that first hour is.
Right.
Of, you're stuck here, everyone's kind of sweating and stressed, and
Yeah.
everyone wants to say something. There's nothing intelligent to say,
Yeah.
um, and something that I forgot about is basically eventually it is decided we need to call the police, and the police enter in an unexpected way. They just see like a delivery van show up, and the
Oh
cops
yeah.
arrive posed as deliverymen, with the already having the idea of somebody could be watching the house. I thought that was a level of care that the cops would have about the safety of this whole operation that I don't see in an American movie, and I don't think that's wrong that we don't see in an American movie, but it was an interesting
True.
detail.
Yeah.
um, and I should note, folks, if you've seen like one Kurosawa movie, you're going to recognize nearly everybody in this. This is kind of a fun, like the lead detective is also in several movies. Other
Hmm.
detectives we have later. Really, everybody in here pops up frequently in these
Wow.
movies, so it's that kind of all-star cast. I'm not going to go down the list too much of names, but um, friendly faces. And if you this is your first Kurosawa movie, get ready to see more and enjoy those friendly faces.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the movie is really split between the investigation post the money being delivered, basically,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
kid being retrieved safely, which thankfully is another kind of surprising thing of the big thing in a kidnapping movie of getting the kid safe happens within about an hour.
Right.
Um, and then we have the rest of the movie, like, well, who did this and why?
True. And it doesn't like lag on tension at all, which
Yeah,
that may be if you hear that you might think, well, they solved it. But it's
right.
well, not necessarily that they solved it, but like the tension builder of the kid being gone is there. So kind of like what's left and turns out there's a lot left.
Right.
So But yeah, it was a lot of it reminded me too. It's that thing also of that we've talked about certainly before, but old movies tend to, or some movies I should say,
Sure.
not necessarily old, but they will block in a way that is it could be a play. Like it literally
Yeah.
you just could envision it as a play, and a lot of that was going on in the I mean in everything, but certainly in the confined house scenes.
Yeah.
And that was a big proponent of people talking about Kurosawa too, is that like blocking is very
Yeah.
specific. And man, it came out a lot in the house scenes. It was distinct in that way. Like pretty right away you can kind of see um stuff going on.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because it jogged a memory. I don't know why this struck specifically. Going back to the kind of the founding again of or refounding of Japan cinema post World War II.
Hmm.
There was literally like a kind of campaign of support your country, make a film with Japan. If you think you're right for this job, write Toho Studios and tell us why, which the government funded one. Toho Studios still exists. And they're great. And
Nice.
Kurosawa penned a very long letter about why Japan could never be taken seriously as a film country, and they would never produce a good movie. And they hired him because of this letter.
Oh.
So I also kind of respect a hater who just shot his shot in that way,
Yeah.
and was wildly different than you know outstanding directors coming out of Japan at the time, like Uzo and many others, but
Mm.
was distinctive in a way that I think was more palatable to the West. Was watching American movies, frankly. Um, it always circles back.
That's right.
It's
And
reciprocal
even
rather.
I agree. Like there was I hate the I've said it before. I hate the word universality because it
Hmm.
tends to be Western film,
Right.
but there really was a universality to this. I think you and it's a testament to the all the movies that you said have been
Yeah.
remade, but also like stuff reminded me of silent film era,
Right.
like
Yeah.
stuff like that had to do with his actors. And there was a lot of drama, like bodily drama,
Yes.
since this is a kind of a drama.
Mhm.
But it's very heightened in a way that I mean, you could, I don't think you could watch this without captions almost and kind of like know
I
what's
think you're
going on.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's, yeah.
that Hitchcock rule again of the sound should go out and you can still
Yes.
follow what's happening. I think that's very true about all of his movies, including this
Yep.
one. One
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
most
yeah.
stressful scenes in this movie is, our lead character, Toshiro Mifune, is finally taking a shower after, being near the phone. And then of course, as
Very
soon as he
vigorous
does,
shower.
I was gonna say maybe the most insane way is someone is like splashing himself. I think the most violent thing in the movie is him showering actually.
That was wild, I will say.
Like I get it. Who knows how long it's been with all this going on. But of course, as soon as he's in there, the phone is ringing and we
Yeah.
no one else can answer. They don't want anyone to know a cop's there, even though it's kind of assumed.
Hmm.
Um, I think it was very interesting to me, like the actual deduction and like solving the case was still very fascinating to me.
Hmm.
And in a way that like a good adaptation of like Sherlock Holmes or something is generally interesting.
Yeah.
With technology for sure, but not technology we have now. Like what ends up becoming a major um, discovery is in the background they can hear um, a
Oh,
trolley
yeah.
or a
Hmm.
cable car rather, and someone has the idea like I bet an expert can figure out which one it is, and turns out he's right that like all the different cable cars running that area are distinctive and just goes to like a train station basically, and the engineer's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's this one because they run on different lines. Like that's such a clever idea to think about that.
Yes.
That's like the thousandth time this guy's probably heard this and no one else has caught it. But that kind of
That's true.
breakthrough in a case is always fun to watch.
True.
And, something that is like that exactly could play out still in the sequel, or not the remake. It could still be
Yes.
we're analyzing the sound and which line of the subway is it, if, assuming they do it in New York because it's Spike Lee. Um,
That's true. And it kind of it's that trope of like asking the vegetable seller or whatever, what
right.
did you see? And then he has like two lines or something,
Yes.
or like in a cheesy like cop movie or something. And
Right,
this
right.
really opens it up to like actual capacity or like,
Yeah.
actual help of
Mm.
other workers also. So there may be like something there too of like um, a nod to industry, and
Yeah.
there. I mean, there's a huge like high and low could potentially also refer to that. Is our main guy named Gordon
Uh,
Gondo
yeah.
Gon yeah
Close.
Gondo, like Gondo and the kidnapper,
Mm,
he distinctly like watches him from a distance, and the house is on a hill, and
yeah.
it's very, there's just a bunch of class stuff going on, but it's nice that they're bringing in the community around them to actually help instead of saying like he went that way.
Right. No, I think you're definitely right. The class issue is very interesting here because, this guy is clearly very wealthy. And apologies, folks, just said this earlier. We are in Yokohama, which my understanding is the second largest by populous city in Japan.
Mm,
Correct us if we're wrong. We're not Japanese. But still, in a major metropolitan area with a major company. He is, I think, like the vice president of this company or something, and um, is doing really well and is pulling their entire fortune um, to make this deal he wants to do prior to needing the kidnapping. By the end of the movie, he's lost his house, and
yeah.
it's an interesting, kind of unexpected thing of like this rich guy didn't really get out of this unscathed, and his plan did blow up in his face. And he works for a competitor now, and he's happier
Yeah.
and is open about that. He doesn't have this pressure. He's not working for a boss he doesn't respect. He has more
Yeah.
free reign to run. And I also like we both have worked jobs. There's somebody. It's really different working for a person who just loves what they do. It's a very, frankly, kind of unique thing and loves whatever the end product is. Like I love getting this to a customer.
Uh-huh.
World of difference doing that for somebody who's just as cynical. How can we increase numbers? you know so I think there's
Night
a
and
lot of
day.
interesting class things about this because it does come out that this kidnapper was a poor
Mhm.
medical intern in a place that didn't have air conditioning or heat, so he was freezing in the winter, he
Mhm.
was scorching in the summer, and looking at this big beautiful house
Right.
and kind of going mad. um and I thought, and I should say, kind of spoiler here, the ending is a in jail in prison confrontation between the kidnapper and
Mhm.
our lead here. And while the kidnapper kind of snaps in this, in an American movie, especially at this time, we would have had, or maybe in a more 40s movie, we would have had well, here's where you're wrong, kid, closing monologue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kids these days type of thing. He is not refuted. He says all this, and he kind of gets the last word in the movie.
The
And
kidnapper, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. He's whatever, like his point about the class disparity is not dismissed by anybody in the movie or the movie itself.
Right.
And then the movie ends. And that's not what frankly, I forgot that that's what happened. Um, and I was pleasantly surprised because, you know, it's not Marxist. It's not sorry to bother you, but frankly, it's kind of closer to Parasite than I remember, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I agree. Like I think it was just nice. It's always nice to not, well, it was a departure, I would say, from like a lot of, there's just such a trend now of the tortured villain that you
yeah,
have to have
yeah.
some crazy insane backstory.
Hmm.
And this one was so just believable and like very like honest, I guess. And
Right.
it's I just find it so effective, um and then to have that little bit of dismantling, I guess, at the end is kind of enough. Like I don't, I wouldn't need some crazy backstory for this guy, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just so effective and nice.
And I think, and this was, I think, maybe one of the first movies this guy was in. And he went on to star in several others. But well, he doesn't have a ton of lines, and he's only in there towards the end. We have some extended, interesting scenes with
Mhm.
him that are him kind of at and these are action sequences, or they're kind of chase sequences where he's being hunted. And without getting too much into the details, he's he basically is looking for another victim.
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to avoid details. He had two accomplices that he gave a lethal overdose of morphine to,
Yeah.
under the guise of, yeah, get high on me, which is how they figure out who he is and linking it back to the hospital.
Right.
He's kind of lured into a trap by getting a message from his, he believes, deceased colleagues saying they're still alive, and is
Mhm.
basically worried that this didn't work and is trying to find someone else he can, with that, to breath of the conscious, give another overdose to test his new thing. So we hang out with this guy a lot in a club
Yeah.
and wandering around, and we spend a lot of time with him where he's not talking that much, but we really take in his face. We take in that he has a hand disfigurement, and it's a
Mhm.
really kind of interesting, humanizing long sequence with this guy
Yeah.
towards
Yeah,
the
it's
end of
true.
it, where if you don't know what's happening, this just looks like a young hip guy hanging out at a club,
Mhm.
you know, and but there's such a desperation behind him. I'm sorry, the actress Tetsuto Yamakasi.
Yeah. I
Um,
even liked his tone of voice. Like they set him up kind of interesting. Like it was I thought that he had kind of a different like diet tone of talking even in the
yeah,
phone calls and stuff. And so that was really
yes,
fun to hear and like um he was kind of they mentioned like the whole thing about the kidnapping is that they say like, oh, this kidnapper is just playing is very playful. He's being like menacing,
yeah,
kind of like he's Luke kind of has him on a string sort of thing, and
yeah.
I
Little
think
cat and mouse. Yeah,
it really came out in the just even in the phone calls. We haven't even seen the guy yet, and I think that
right.
it's comes across really well, and just the stuff that the way that he said stuff and the specifics of what he asks for, I guess, is
Hmm.
very um distinct. Again,
Yeah, it's something that works so well in a
yeah,
movie. This kind of threatening voice on the phone who knows you,
yeah,
that has been done so many times now and has become like a, what was the When a Stranger Calls, the horror movie from the 70s or something, I think. It's been done so many times that it's
yeah,
often a B movie or bad horror movie thing, but when it works, it really works. And this is a
yeah,
great version of it,
right.
you know, and I think the fact that he's wrong initially makes it a little more threatening, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that he does, among the first thing he does is fuck up and get the wrong kid. And he calls and figures that out within like 10 minutes,
Yeah,
but it still is having these other details he knows about them. And it's always calm in a way
yeah,
that's deeply upsetting, especially while calm, collected, or should be, businessman is just losing his mind.
yeah. That's what I mean, how it was nice to everything that everybody did wasn't like a stupid,
Yeah.
very very how can that happen kind of thing. Like
Right.
I it was everything was kind of smart. So that
Yeah.
was that was appreciated, I would say.
Yeah. And we have, going back to the smartest name, we have many long sequences of, I should say many, but like some extended sequences of the where the detectives are at in this case and everything. And it's generally really interesting,
Hmm.
of how they're tracking him in this day and age, and how they're not triangulating the phone call, exactly. Like there's a little bit of tracing, but also like, all right, well, from just, he said it was really hot,
Mm.
and we know he came from like this general area. This phone booth is more shaded, so it's probably one of the other two, and then from there,
Mm.
figuring out
Yeah.
which. So just like stuff like that is still easy to do.
Hmm.
Um, it's tangible. It was really interesting. It's frankly, it's easier to follow than just
Yeah.
a person typing into a keyboard frantically, and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily like super twisty or
yeah,
and then
that's true.
something comes out about the story or something. It was very like linearly logical, like kind of
Yeah,
I guess the way things unfold, which is a little I think that was what I was sort of seeing in
oh,
maybe older detective I mean maybe like detective stuff was very saturated in like the 40s
sure. The film noir
and
was always a
50s.
twist.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
the detective is always being strung along to some degree.
That's right.
You
Hmm.
know,
And this was I think this was not that and
yeah,
still just so effective and tension filled. Like it didn't take
yeah,
away from the tension for me, which is a big I think people think that and it's like, well, no, that's not the truth.
right.
Yeah.
No, I think, and it should be noted too. This was, sorry, it was 63. I got the year wrong earlier. This was an interesting time for Kurosawa, who had had success for so long, um, was start his star was starting to fade a little bit, particularly in America. Sorry,
Mhm.
not America, in Japan, um, largely because of more contemporary gangster movies that
Mm.
were younger and fresher uh, blood. And so this, he didn't exactly make a gangster movie, but he kind of has them in there. He has a
Yeah.
stylish movie. And I think that kind of nightclub sequence where we have a young guy with sunglasses drinking,
Mhm.
it was kind of his, I don't want to say nod to it, but maybe trying to adapt it a little bit while still making a Kurosawa movie.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was very cool. And I will say a lot of the movies that were made during this period were been retroactively, I think, getting greater acclaim. To be clear,
Uh-huh.
this one, my understanding, did quite well when it came out.
Mm.
But Star started to shine, fade a little bit. He actually
Yeah.
attempted suicide in the 70s and thankfully survived and
Wow.
made films for another nearly 30 years. So,
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, there's
yeah.
so much um there's a lot of I think that a big thing about the story is that there's just a lot of morality going on,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's not black and white at all,
Right.
obviously. And so that's very fascinating. I don't know.
And I think we mentioned earlier, like the Gorgon, the main character here, loses his house by the end of it.
Hmm.
The detectives are very caught off guard by this because they have this really wanting to have come to respect him and really wanting him to win because
Uh-huh.
after he's already made his bid to take over his company, he's basically it becomes public and his the people who we kicked out of his house at the beginning of the movie are kind of using this against him, like, well, now we can easily get you out. And even his secondhand man at work betrays him,
Yeah.
and they're really trying to solve this case to recover his money, and they
Hmm.
do, and it's not in time. It's the house is still being auctioned,
Hmm.
and they have this look of kind of defeat on them, and it's so much simpler than we didn't save your daughter in time, like it would often be.
Yeah.
But there still is this sense of, oh shit, this didn't work, and the scales being a lot smaller is interesting
Hmm.
than human life. Although that is like there is a threat that the kidnapped kid will be killed,
Hmm.
but there was something kind of satisfying um, as an American, wherein frankly a cab is used often and understandably to see these
Hmm.
cops kind of fail in defending the rich guy. Like they do
Yeah.
everything, it's just a little bit late.
Yeah, really.
And even though it works, it still kind of doesn't. They didn't protect the property. And of course, I'm
True.
looking at this as a millennial American. I can't speak to what the um, intended imagery was at the
Yeah.
time, but it's hard to ignore. And I'm saying this because I know our listenership is often like-minded with us towards the left. So if you're worried about watching a cop movie,
Yeah.
you know,
They
it's
fail.
they fail.
So,
And it's it's not American cops, which in general makes it better.
mhm.
um
I no, I really like that line of the one of the investigators when they're on the train is like, "Yeah, I hated that guy. Like I
yeah,
hated him when we first started, but
yeah,
now I feel kind of bad, I guess."
right.
And it's like that's pretty like understandable.
Yeah, and he is kind of a pig-headed guy at the
Right.
beginning.
Yeah.
um so I think one of my biggest takeaways on rewatching this was like I'm really excited to see Denzel play this.
That's what
You
I
know?
was I wonder I feel like I don't know, he kind of brings a lot of like a lot of charm. And
He's a
I
very
think
charming guy. Yeah.
something about Gondo is kind of like I think there has to be like something uncharming like about him. You kind
Mm,
of have to
sure.
you want I think you kind of want that in so that you can be
Yeah.
it'll be a little bit more satisfying maybe as things play out.
Yeah, that's a
But
good point. That's a really good, interesting point because I think Mifune definitely has a charm, and even by the end of it, where he has this kind of sad resolved of maybe not even sad resolve, like I lost a lot of money. This was harrowing, but I'm happier in this easier job.
mhm.
um, but still went through a lot, you
Yeah.
know. Um, yeah, I can see it working, but yeah, Denzel being not charming even when he's being terrifying, like in
Yeah.
um Training Day, he's still charming. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited too. It sounds I mean, and I think that it is so stylized and
Yeah.
like you said, like how much more stylized could you get from a director than Spike Lee?
For sure,
So
sure.
that's gonna be that's gonna be it'll make it different, like right then and there. So,
Right.
it's not just like a repackaging and spitting something out.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Megan, should we get to our closing thoughts on this, or is there another area of this movie you want to explore?
I think so. I'm ready.
Cool.
Hmm.
As the first time viewer, I want to hear your thoughts first. It's all right.
Well, sure. I I may have read out of my thoughts
That's
like
all right.
in us talking about it, but
What would you
um
tell someone who has not seen it yet?
I so this is from a person who watched it in film class. I think it's evidently so worthy to watch it in a film
Yeah,
class because of like all that or sorry, someone who watched Kurosawa in a film class, I should
sure.
say, and all the stylistic techniques are there. Um I really enjoyed it, just like simple yet not storytelling
Yeah.
is so well done here. And if you need a refresher, just watch this one or look out for maybe Spike Lee's coming up like we will.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it I loved that I saw touches of like vaudeville stuff. You see touches
Yeah.
of noir, you see touches of everything, and truly how influential evidently it really is. So you'll see it if you watch this, and I think you'll enjoy as much as I did.
Fantastic. Yeah, folks, I can't recommend this movie enough. And um, I have nothing against the um, feudal Japan samurai movies that he's maybe more known for. Check those out by all means. But if you haven't, watch a contemporary Kurosawa. It's really interesting. And he did several. Stray Dog is another one, also with Mifune, and then he did The Bat Sleep Well, which is a modern day adaptation of Hamlet. Takes place with a
Oh,
construction company rather than Denmark. It's really interesting,
cool.
but it's very cool to see what a person who's so known for doing period pieces
Hmm.
does and does well with contemporary movies. That's always
Right.
kind of fascinating. Um, but yeah, I think this is a doesn't go the way you expect, and so highly recommend it.
Good pick,
Um,
sis.
Thank you.
Excited for the sequel or the remake, I should say.
It'd be very funny if they made a sequel, actually.
A sequel.
uh, all right, Megan, do you want to start us off with recommendations?
Sure, we kind of talked about it off camera, folks, but the
Yeah.
only thing that's been on my mind is that Mad Max Fury Road actually had a prequel that was coming
Yeah.
out this year. I think this was the top thing I wanted to watch this year. Um Watched it. This is Furiosa, and Seth and I talked. I said I really liked it. I
Yeah.
was if viewers can remember, I was like obsessed with Mad Max Fury Road. Having not I saw it after it came out of
Yeah.
theaters, so I saw it later. And oh, I do wish I saw it in theaters. Like I just can't even imagine. But this like Furiosa is to me is necessary to watch in theaters.
Yeah.
Like you'll get so much out of it. But I really liked it. I Chris Hemsworth is literally amazing in it.
Yeah.
Like this is the best thing I've seen him in. I think he's unrecognizable in a good way. The character's awesome,
Yeah.
and Firos was great too. It was just kind of different. It was a little different than Fury Road in good ways, um, and certain ways that I kind of was missing from
Sure.
Fury Road. That's what I'll say. But I mean, I would just I've been banking on this movie for months. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to recommend it, especially in theaters. You have to see it in theaters.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great movie, folks. We actually ended up not seeing it together because we don't live in the same state, but we saw it at basically the exact same time.
Yep. Yep.
um, I'm just gonna second your recommendation for Fear. I have something else, but I want to talk about a little bit. Yeah, it's great and
Please.
fully recommend seeing it and seeing it in person in theater. I mean, um, Hemsworth played a interesting cult leader in a different movie from like 6 years ago, Bad Times at El
Oh.
Royale, and he's pretty
Oh.
good in it. And the movie doesn't
Yeah.
quite work for a few reasons. I think some of it's script, director, But there was definitely this signs of like, man, there's a better movie where Chris Hemsworth is a cult leader, and yes, there is, and George Miller's back to do it, and it's
Oh,
such a odd like redemption round for Hemsworth being able to do this
right?
charismatic, deranged person again, and
Hmm.
yeah, it was everything is about it great. Anya Taylor-Joy is great. I'm blanking on her name, but the actor who plays young Furiosa,
I agree. I
she
don't know her name
who was
either.
like a lot of the movie. It's like an hour of the movie. We have the kid
Right.
Furiosa, and it's great.
She
Um,
was great.
yeah, everything about it's fantastic. Having seen all the Mad Max movies, it's not as good as Fury Road, but I think it's the second best Mad Max movie,
Wow.
which is still just so insane that George Miller is making better Mad Max movies than he did in the 70s. So,
He's
um,
learning.
yeah, he's in his 80s, so finally.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I mean, I like the other ones, but there's a next levelness of these that is to be seen to be believed.
Yeah.
um,
I'm a fake fan here. I haven't seen the originals, so is it
I
Seth
don't.
and I talked about maybe we'll have to go through them
Yeah,
together.
because obviously, fans, if you heard our Fury Road episode, you know who's coming back on to talk about Furiosa is friend of the podcast, Riley Gerber. So,
He's I
um,
hope he's chomping at the bit because
yes,
we're excited to talk to him about it.
and there's definitely the excitement of after Fury Road came out, it was Tom Hardy's in an interview. He was signed on for three other Mad Max movies, like he
Oh
personally.
wow.
Unfortunately, it was a long dispute with George Miller and I think Warner Brothers Studios, or maybe it's 20th Century Fox. I don't remember to get paid. There was
Okay.
a long that wasn't settled until 2019, 4
Wow.
years after the movie. So
Okay.
everything was kind of delayed, but um, hopefully, with Furious now that there's going to be getting back to some of those. Love Tom Hardy as Max. Hope we get more of that,
Wow. Yeah.
and I hope we have more. Love Anna Taylor Joy, but I do miss Charlize Theron as Furiosa,
Yeah.
so I would love to see another movie with her playing that character
Hmm.
again.
It was interesting. They really tried to like make it seem like them towards the very end
Yeah,
because and we
yeah,
pick up right where Fury Road starts off
right.
basically.
Which I did
So
not expect. I thought we'd have like
me
a
either.
more obvious. It's been 10, 20, whatever
Hmm.
years.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
It just
yeah,
it was kind of funny. It was a little bit of a love letter to Fury Road because
it
even
was.
the credits had Fury Road like clips. So I
You
don't know.
you can
It
kind
was
of watch a quick montage of your
yeah. If and so glad they didn't do that as in the beginning or anything like that. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
it wouldn't have fit anyway. But it
right,
was just interesting. Like I think they're very connected.
right.
But it's a great prequel also.
And folks, if you are, I'm going to give you this tip because I can't remember if it's come up before, but any younger or listener our age who hasn't seen the original ones, they are not directly linked other than these two. Like
Okay.
it's more like a different person is telling you a myth about Mad Max,
Yeah.
like a myth of Hercules or
Oh.
something. Like there's a lot of parallels, there's a lot of characterization, but then there's a lot of like, well, wait a minute, didn't that guy die in the last one? Or no, he
Uh-huh.
was here, he was more like this. There's a lot of details that don't add up if you try to tell it as a
Mm.
continual story, and they shouldn't. And I think they're much
Yes.
better for that.
That's cool.
He's this mythological creature, which is
Right.
interesting.
Right.
And I
I
meant
like
creature,
that.
not character. Okay. I am gonna have one other additional rec, sorry.
Yes,
Um,
of course.
as I mentioned, among the films that were kind of starting to push Kurosawa out towards the late 60s was gangster movies, more specifically Yakuza movies. And I'm going to list my favorite, Tokyo Drifter by
Ah.
Seijun Suzuki. Again, apologies for punctuation. An absolutely delightfully insane movie. This is one of the most colorful eye candy movies
Cool.
ever made. This is a movie that is a parody of Yakuza movies largely, but also a
Hmm.
very successful one. It is the hitman on the run. He's got to do right by his leader, his boss, etc. But so many like there is a full on 1930s Western bar saloon fight in the middle of this movie.
Mm.
There's scenes that are in black and white, then bright colors. You have a
Ooh.
guy who's largely good at his job as a yakuza because he can run so fast that people can't hit him, and he can hit them faster with the gun. And
Mm.
like he's running and shooting well before Matrix, and it's just a fascinating, delightful, very funny, well stylish movie. It never feels it never feels ironic. It always feels funny and genuine, like everyone's having a great time making this
Nice.
bizarre movie. That also does have a cool throughout its story, uh, among the most stylish movies ever made. So
Wow.
you can kind of see, as much as I love Kurosawa, when you have, and unfortunately, this director made several movies that are great, and then also was kind of deemed unprofitable because his movies were too crazy. Even though
Wow.
people were liking them, was kind of fired and blacklisted for a while. But so I don't want to say, oh, it's not because movies got so much more exciting that Kurosawa was out. This guy also didn't do well for too long, but you can also
Mm,
kind of understand as a viewer, be like, well, I want to see that. I want to see the young guy
yeah.
doing this, not already aging elder who's been making good movies, but movies for my parents, and I want to see this wild one. So
Interesting.
I'm not gonna lie, we're probably gonna cover this movie eventually, Megan, because I think you would like it.
Oh, that'd be
um,
well, I'm embarrassed to say, like, I thought or I heard the name Drifter, and I was like, "Well, isn't there a Tokyo Drift?" And,
there's a
that is a Fast and
Fast and
Furious
Furious.
movie.
Yeah, I have never seen a Fast and Furious movie, and I don't think that'll change unless
I have not either, but I
that's a challenge.
the
Guess if you can convince us to watch a Fast and Furious movie, maybe.
the meme
Um,
of the name is
yeah,
what keeps me going,
right.
like, of Too Fast, Too Furious, like, putting that for every franchise is, my favorite thing in the world.
Sorry, we have to touch on this because you brought it up. I need to look at more about what exactly happened, but legendary filmmaker, producer Roger Corman,
Mm.
who like launched the careers for many people, including Martin Scorsese and Jack
Oh.
Nicholson and Francis Ford, like directors, actors, produced and directed like over 100 movies, and he died like a few weeks ago.
Oh,
He
man.
made a movie in the 60s called Fast and Furious. I don't recall if he produced or directed it. I don't think the newer movies were actually a remake, but because he owned the rights to it, he's actually personally responsible for the insane title changes.
Titles?
He somehow had in a contract that there could not be Fast and the Furious 2. Like they couldn't be numbered like that. So all of them having a bizarre title like that is because of Roger Corman, and that is
Oh my god.
a joke he's still enjoying now that he's in the grave because they're still making those movies. And I did not know that until recently. Like that is
Oh,
such an odd, quirky thing to do when you've already had such a big signature fingerprint left on film
it's a good joke.
to just mess with a franchise like that.
I laugh every time.
Right?
It's so funny.
And as someone who hasn't watched the movies, it's very confusing as to which one anyone's talking about. So,
Mhm. I agree.
yeah. All right, folks,
Uh,
we'll leave you with that joke from a dead man. We'll
mhm.
be back again soon. As always, you can find us at Instagram at Film Optimus, on Twitter. Still on Twitter. If you want a recommendation for us, if you have a comment, suggestion, or hate mail, it's filmoptimist@gmail.com.
That's
Um,
right.
well, we can take it. It's fine.
Mhm.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, there's a well, you can even get everything on filmoptimist.com, like you
Right,
said.
right. Of course,
Sorry.
our website.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Check
Hmm.
out our main website. It's the fastest way.
Yes, that's true.
All
All right,
right,
folks.
you take care.